What glitch in the Matrix have you experienced? Redditor 1, I don't think I've ever actually told anyone this before, but here it goes. About a decade ago I was dating a girl who lived out of town. It was Friday, she got out of classes early, so she was going to come and visit me for the weekend. It was one of the first really warm evenings of spring, so decided that I would have enough time to do a quick bike ride and then clean up before she got to my apartment. The plan was to bike out on this dirt road up in the mountains and then at 45 minutes turn around and come back, and that will give me about 15 minutes to clean up before girlfriend arrived. The last thing that I remember was turning around at the 45-minute mark and seeing a path that went more or less straight up a mountain into the dense forest. It looked like a game trail. I couldn't bike it, so I left the bike beside the road and curiosity got the best of me and I just started walking up the path even though I knew I was on a tight schedule and I didn't have any time to spare. Next thing I know I'm back in front of my apartment. Just laying in the grass staring up at the clouds at the last light in the evening sky. I hear my girlfriend call my name a few times and I kinda snap back to reality a bit. She asked was I alright and I said that I went on a quick bike ride and I guess I'm a lot more out of shape than I thought I was or something because I must have came home and just laid down. The mind is a funny thing. When presented with a solution to missing memories or any other type of glitch in the Matrix, the brain will quickly adapt and suddenly you're like, I guess that makes sense. But something in the back of my mind kept whispering to me that something wasn't quite right. Goosebumps on my arm, but I didn't know why they were there. Through the entirety of the shower and cleaning up I was telling my girlfriend that, yes I went for a bike ride, yes, I guess it wiped me out, yes I guess this makes sense but something seems off. She said that when we go out to dinner we should drive down the road that I went on and that she wanted to see it. I think she thought I would find some closure or reassurance. We drove out there and as we came to the game trail suddenly chills all down my body and my mind caught up with my subconscious and asked the question that I was avoiding. Where the heck is my bike? Because I saw it. It was where I left it. On the side of the road. How the duck did I end up back at my place in time for my girlfriend to be there if I walked back when it took me 45 minutes to bike out there, not include time it took to walk up the path? Why the duck did I decide to leave my bike where it was and just walk back in the first place? Why in the heck can I not remember any of my return trip? 10 years later and I still can't explain this other than a glitch in the Matrix. Redditor 2, I was home alone one weekend, and decided to make myself scrambled eggs for breakfast. Took a full carton out of the fridge. Grabbed an egg, cracked it. Went to grab a second egg, only to notice the carton was full. Again. I stood there and stared at the full carton for a few minutes expecting one to disappear maybe? Then I just threw them all out. Wasn't gonna duck around with phantom eggs. There is probably a rational explanation but I know what I saw. Redditor 3, I feel déjà vu too much. Sometimes something happens, and I remember it from years ago. And it's not once or twice. It happened a lot. Redditor 4, I have this weird thing where I'll be out somewhere, at a mall for example, and I see someone I know, but upon closer inspection it's not the person I was thinking of. It's just someone who looks like them. Then later on during the day I'll actually end up seeing the very person I thought I saw earlier. It's fucking weird and happens all the time. And it's not usually people I see on the regular. Often it's people I haven't seen in years. It sometimes happens with other stuff too, like music. I'll sometimes think of a song I haven't heard in years, and then later on the song will play on the radio, TV, etc. Redditor 5, my friend still to this day after 25 years swears he saw me at the shopping center we went and had lunch at the food hall. He said I seemed distant. I was 200 kilometers away visiting my sister at the time. Redditor 6, so I borrowed a history book on a very niche topic through an interlibrary loan program. This was for a senior thesis in 2008 in my final year of college. I underlined certain passages in pencil and made notes, and was too lazy to erase everything before returning the item. Cut to 5 years later, I'm visiting a friend in a large city. I had time to kill, so I walk around the city and happen upon a seemingly random university campus. It's a nice urban campus, and I reminisce about my college days. Their library is open so I go inside. This library has a large East Asian my area of interest collection shown on a wall map, so I walk up to the 4th floor and peruse. So I see a title, North Korean Education in Japan, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, they carry that book. So, I open the book intending to read a passage. My notes are in this book. WTF. This is the same book I borrowed 5 years ago, at a university a good 900 miles away. Redditor 7, I had a dream a FedEx airplane flew overhead and a purple food truck was coming in the other lane. On way to work that morning a FedEx plane was landing overhead. I worked near airport and I had this pit in my stomach and I looked to the right and there was the purple food truck. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. Redditor 8, it was a very odd situation, and perhaps the largest glitch in the Matrix scenario of my life. I went into the locker room of my gym after my workout to change into my regular clothes, get my stuff, and leave. I forgot exactly which locker was mine, but knew the general area it was in, so I decided to just open up each locker. Many lockers locked with 3-digit combination padlock master locks in that section until I found mine. So, I kept putting in my combination to every new lock, but to no avail. After several failed attempts, I finally unlocked a lock and proceeded to open the locker. It was empty. Naturally, I started freaking out. My clothes, phone, wallet, and MetroCard were in my locker, and I just started walking in circles, thinking what to do. I thought that the devil who stole from me must have picked my lock, got all of the stuff out, and then closed the lock to not arouse suspicion before he went on his merry way. Just as I was about to walk out of the lock room, I had a strong urge to try to open the lock on the locker right next to the one I just opened. So, I attempted to put in my combo. It fucking opened. That locker was mine, and the lock right next to mine opened to the same, exact combination. The padlock has 40 numbers, and each number of the 3-number combo can be any of those 40. Can you believe how unbelievably small the odds are to have 2 locks open to the same combination, side by side? Even engraved factory number on the back of the locks were 1 digit apart. Well, I decided that it would be absolutely amazing to have 2 locks with the same combo, so I relocked the lock that wasn't mine. If no one claimed it in 3 weeks, I would take it for myself. The lock was empty every single day, so I decided to take it home with me. Velp, it didn't last for long, as the Matrix had to rectify itself. A couple of months later, I came to the locker room after my workout to change, with the same story. Didn't remember which lock was mine, but I would just try my combo out until I found it. I tried all of the locks in the locker room multiple times, and none of them opened to my combo. Again, I started freaking out, believing I had been robbed. Velp, I got another strange urge to open an empty locker right before I left the locker, and as I'm sure you would have guessed by now, it was my locker. Inside the locker was all of my stuff untouched, and in addition was my lock, clipped, as well as a $10 and a note of explanation written on a small piece of paper towel. Sorry, had the lock clipped because I thought that this locker was mine. The catch? The lock that was clipped was the same lock that I took home months prior. Edit, here are the pics of the locks with a stamped code differing by 1 digit, and the clipped lock, the note, and the $5 not $10 surprise I received a couple of months later. Redditor 9, I swear to God there's a glitch that turns socks into Tupperware lids that is yet to be patched. I have like 30 Tupperware lids and maybe 5 of the actual tubs. Meanwhile I can't find a matching pair of socks for the life of me. Redditor 10, my ex swears we time traveled or were abducted by aliens. I think we were drugged somehow. We were going on a 9-hour drive. We left at 6 a.m. I know this for a fact because a grandfather clock chimed as I closed the door and looked at my phone to see 6. We made a bet with me saying Therese no way shed be ready before 6. We drove non-stop with the exception of a 10-minute bathroom break and getting gas one time which took 20 minutes. At the end of the drive we were at the hotel and it was still bright out. We pulled into the car park and I grabbed a luggage dolly. We loaded up in about 10 minutes and exited the underground car park to see it was now night. I checked my phone to see it was after 8. We were freaked and went in. I asked what time it was and they said 8:20. Should be 4-5-ish. Gets weirder. My friend called me at 9 and asked me if the cop gave us a ticket. I asked him what cop? He told me that I was on the phone with him after we finished the luggage so I could find out what building they were in. While talking, I had the phone on speaker and a cop on a motorcycle came up and said we ran a light and a stop sign almost hitting someone before pulling in, highly likely, X couldn't drive for shit. He said he's been circling looking for us. I hung up on my friend. I remember none of this and neither did she. I believe we were drugged, possibly as we both had hangover like headaches, but why? Nothing was stolen and I had close to $2,000 in my wallet. I had a laptop in plain view, and she was wearing her grandfather's big gold insignia ring. Redditor 11. Once I couldn't find the TV remote. I gave up and just watched the YouTube vids that were autoplaying. Maybe 30 minutes later it appeared right next to me while I was sitting, too obvious to have been missed. Redditor 12. I passed the scene of an accident involving a silver Suzuki 4x4. About 3 seconds later I drove past another silver Suzuki 4x4, looked in the mirror, and saw that the accident was gone and that the SUV was driving casually over the horizon. Redditor 13. When I was a kid, it was the middle of a weekend. My parents were out on the porch talking to our neighbors, and I was playing on my Xbox 360 I had gotten as a gift in the living room. I went into the kitchen to grab a drink and I walked back in. My Xbox is off, and my parents and sister are inside eating dinner. It was like right after lunch when I went to get a drink. I always wonder where those 6 hours of my life went. Creeped me out. Redditor 14. I've told this story a few times. My mum came back from grocery shopping with this huge ass rock melon, and we planned to eat it that night. Fast forward 2 hours or so, we open the fridge and the rock melon's nowhere to be found. We check everywhere but still don't find it. How can something that big go missing? Redditor 15. Sometimes my age doesn't feel right, and I need to recalculate to make sure I'm not older than I am. The glitch seals up quickly, but it does come up. Redditor 16. I don't turn on the lights in my room, I just have natural light or fairy lights, but I swear to God sometimes it's just dark, not like blinking but just for a second it is completely dark in the middle of the day before going back to normal. Redditor 17. I was ordering at this fast food near my school when a girl across me, also in another line, kept looking like totally obvious on your peripheral, so I looked back. You can call me quirky or what, but I absolutely have no idea who she is, but she looks very familiar. So I asked if I know her. No. But you look very familiar. She asked my name and I asked hers. Nope, doesn't ring a bell at all. Later, I searched for her Facebook. We have no mutuals at all. And she lives far away. Sometimes makes me wonder if that was a glitch, lol. Maybe somebody forgot to erase my memories. Redditor 18. I went on Outward Bound as a teen. For those who don't know, it was basically like a 2-week backpacking trip and leadership school where they teach you how to work in a group and a bunch of other stuff beyond just backpacking. Well, we had 2 instructors. One would stay in the front of the group, and the other would stay in the back of the group. When you hike in a group, the slowest members of the group generally lead, so that we all stay together and take breaks together, etc. So we had an order that we stuck with that worked. On one part of the trail we all had to cross this log across a ditch. We get off on the other side of the log, and we all just kinda look at each other for a minute. We all agreed that we got off the log in a different order than we got on the log. We all just kinda stare at each other for a minute or two going, huh? And then we kept hiking because WTF else do you do in that situation? Redditor 19. I always seem to see this exact question right before I type or glitch in the matrix. Redditor 20. I was in my office one afternoon and was working on inputting some data. My office was housed in what used to be an old dorm, so it was a smaller room that only I used. Because I was working in an Excel sheet, I wasn't using my mouse, just the Enter and Tab keys to maneuver around the sheet. While I was working, I had Pandora open on my desktop and was listening to music. It had been a while since I'd clicked on the tab and the music had stopped. I went to use my mouse and it was gone. I looked around my desk and didn't see it, so I checked on the floor. I touched everything on my desk, which wasn't much, and said what it was: keyboard, stapler, phone, etc. aloud as I put my hand on it. Wasn't there. I even picked up my keyboard and swept my hand across my desk in case my brain just was seeing it but not registering it. Still not there. So I went over to the tech cabinet also in my office and grabbed out another mouse and took it back over to my desk, sat down, and there was my mouse, right next to the keyboard. It was literally where I had put my hand initially, but didn't see or feel it when I was looking for it. I don't normally get fazed by things, I assume there's always a reasonable explanation for phenomena. But I cannot explain how I missed my mouse sitting on my desk, pretty much where it was every single day. Redditor 21. Everything tastes like chicken. Redditor 22. A few things. When I was a kid there was a knock at front door. Opened it to see my dad in work uniform. He ignored me and walked upstairs. I followed him about 30 seconds later and I couldn't find him anywhere. Went back downstairs and into living room to find him lying on the couch in plain clothes. He and my mum insisted he'd been lying there for past few hours. Another time I was walking down the street with my twin sister. A car went past and backfired. For some reason I said it went bang. My sister looked confused and said, "What did?" Suddenly the car went past again and backfired again. My sister asked how I knew that was going to happen. I told her that when I said it went bang I was referring to it having happened moments before. She said, "No it didn't." Final thing, similar to the car story, I was at school one day and a girl was making fun of me. She came up to me and insulted me. I forget exactly what was said. Suddenly it felt like time rewound a few seconds and I got the exact same feeling I had when the car thing happened. I knew time was about to replay, so as the girl was insulting me I said the exact words she was saying. She and all her friends got really creeped out and left me alone after that. Redditor 23. Went to get sheets for my bed and there were two neatly folded sheets right where I was just sitting. Redditor 24. I saw my friend, one of the ones in my pic with me in my mum's house while I was house sitting for her. Through them old style holes in the wall you serve food through. And he walked past and was gone. I saw him for 2 seconds completely clear. He doesn't even live in the same area. Freaked me out big time. Redditor 25. One time I was sick and was looking out the window. It was pretty dark outside, but when I blinked, it was daytime. Redditor 26. My GF hasn't been programmed yet. Redditor 27. I felt like I lived a day 3 times. Everything was the same. But people wore different clothes. But the conversations I had were the exact same. Weirdest. Redditor 28. Quite often, when I'm watching a YouTube video I'll scroll down into the comments, read a comment that directly quotes something said in the video right as the person will say it in the video. I've lost count how many times this has happened to me. Redditor 29. I walk to the subway every morning and there's this one spot that there's always a car coming out of every time I walk past it. It's not the same guy every day or anything, either. It's like in GTA games where they have, like, scripted planes fly by when you're driving down a specific road. The weird part is that once I acknowledged it and started really noticing it, and told people about it, I started walking a different route and have found it to be happening again but at a completely different spot. It's just weird, I guess, I dunno. Redditor 30. My girlfriend and I were walking down the street one morning from breakfast during a sunny and clear day. We both started seeing raindrops appear out of nowhere. And not regular ones, long skinny ones, so skinny and long it looked like the affect you'd see from an alien abduction in movies. We felt the drops on our skin, but didn't see them hit us. We hadn't acknowledged it yet, but she said my name and we both looked at each other in disbelief. She looked up, and swore she saw something she couldn't explain, and interrupted my train of thought in the process to try and get me to see. I, on the other hand, wanted to look around to see if anyone else was experiencing this. It was like time had frozen. Seriously. Maybe they all were just stopped at the red light and coincidentally all staying still. But there was no raindrops, the floor and windows were dry. But I felt them. When I looked up I didn't see what my girlfriend saw, just a clear blue sky. And then the rain stopped, and the cars went on their way. She said it looked like a UFO after some digging, but it stands as the most inexplainable experience of my life. Edit. I was kinda high writing this and realized how poorly written it is, yikes. Redditor 31. I had a pretty intense acid trip in Manchester, Tennessee like 5 years ago. The next day my friends and I were sitting around a picnic table recounting our experiences from the previous evening. At one point, my friend appeared to glitch like he was a digital rendering of himself. At that moment I was hit with the thought, all of existence has already played out, and with man's final breath of life our collective consciousness was uploaded into an eternal hard drive which just repeats existence over start to finish again and again, and I have been here before. Years later I randomly came across The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. My world was rocked. Redditor 32, in middle school I tried to throw a pencil over a locker bank but came up short, and it landed on the locker's roof, which was angled. The pencil bounced up off the locker, hit the ceiling, fell about an inch away from the ceiling, then went back up and hit the ceiling again, defying gravity momentarily. Then fell on the floor. My friend also saw this happen. We stared at the pencil for a while on the ground. Redditor 33, when I was around 13 years old I took my mom's dog, Timmy, walking around the block, and every 2 laps I'd go check in with her. Well, on my second to last lap I decided to go down to this creek that was technically trespassing on some guy's land, and we walked down it a little bit. I let Timmy drink from it. Then the next thing I know there's a cop yelling my name at me, and I'm like over 2 miles away from my block at the edge of a golf course. Timmy was still with me, and I have no memory of what happened or how I had gotten there. My mom said I was gone for 4 hours and called the cops after the first. It still freaks me out thinking about it. I don't even remember the cop driving me home, just him yelling my name, looking down at Timmy, then him back home with my mom hugging me. I waited 2 days before going back to that creek, and it felt like everything was wrong and that I needed to get out of there. Never went back after that. Also, Timmy started watching me sleep after that. I'd open my eyes and his eyes would be right there. He didn't pant, swing his tail, nothing, just sat and watched all night every night I was there. Redditor 34, for the past month or so I've been intermittently having a series of dreams involving someone who is apparently my wife, who I'm confident I've never met and doesn't exist. It's not, like, a coworker or a neighbor or anything like that. I've racked my brain and I'm pretty sure this person was made up out of whole cloth. But she has a consistent personality, a consistent voice, her fashion sense is always the same. She constantly reassures me that things are okay and listens to my problems. She teases me about my bad habits. My brain has created a much more complete personality for this person over the course of several different dreams that I feel like I know her better than a lot of acquaintances in my life, despite the fact that she's completely fictional. Redditor 35, I walked into a grocery store with my boyfriend at the time when I realized I had left my jacket in the car, so I asked him to go get it while I stayed inside to begin shopping. He's gone for a while. He comes back inside the store to tell me that he was outside chasing me down the road in order to ask me why I had left the store and was running away. I was inside the store the entire time. I never left. He swears up and down that the girl he chased after was me. Looked like me, same outfit and hair. This didn't just happen once. In the same city where that happened, my father swears that he saw me walking alongside the highway, wearing my outfit, but I was 30 miles away at home with my mom. Sometimes I wonder what would happen to me if I ran into this chick. Redditor 36, so I'll preface this by saying I drink a lot. But this last year or so I'll wake up and watch the news and things I remember happening have changed. Little things that aren't hugely consequential, but I'll pause and think this isn't right. Redditor 37, I've experienced several. For one, I've suddenly lost or gained large swathes of time before. I'd get out of school at 1535, have my regular 180-minute walk home, and upon returning home it'd be 1545. That's happened a few times. I also have had this weird panorama happen to me where I'll see an extremely rare car, take definite notice to it, and then start seeing it everywhere I go. Not your standard rare USDM vehicle, but ultra rare and niche imports, vehicles that were not made for volume. Quirky European vehicles that are a pita to find in Europe, let alone the US. I know it's also not a matter of there being conventions or anything, because after seeing the first one, I seem to see them in extreme volumes for years, and once again, not like our 32 GTRs or MK4 Supras, but weird K cars and shit like that, as if I crossed a boundary into Japan, Russia, and in some cases, even the USSR, seeing old Ladas, Unimogs, and stuff like that which just doesn't exist in the US. Another time, I was driving through an intersection late at night, when it felt like I got hit by a motorcyclist who ran through a red light. I get out, do not find anybody or anything. I investigate my car, and there is not even a sign of a mark. Has that extremely sensitive metal flake paint that gets scuffed by the wind blowing on it too hard. That one really got to me. There was another time when I woke up something like 4 hours late for work, got myself there, and I was off that day. I was not on any schedule or anything for that day, but everybody else in the hospital swore up and down that I was supposed to be in, being that I was on the schedule 4 hours beforehand, double shift. Not a really weird one, but definitely peculiar, and one that at least 30 people felt and found odd. Nobody ever figured out why that happened, either, and that was also extremely weird. It was like some invisible hand scratched me and replaced every schedule in the hospital without anybody noticing. This is not personal to me, but I also think Fermi's paradox is peculiar, all things considered. It's supposedly mathematically impossible that we are alone, and also just as mathematically improbable that we should not have expected much more advanced extraterrestrial visitors. However, we somehow have never had any really substantial evidence to suggest so. This in itself is a theory in explaining how we are in a simulation, but I think that alone is a definitive tell that it is a mathematical improbability. We have never received any sort of otherworldly correspondence, yet we have not received any such substantial correspondence. Extremely Seuss, Chief, Redditor 38, I've had a pretty intense near-death experience 2 times. Both times I remember seeing a bright light and I came out perfectly fine. First time I was in a car crash. Car steered off the road and into a dense crop of trees. I remember the first tree snapping and falling on our car, then a bright light, then the car is stopped. The car was absolutely totaled, like nothing about it was intact. All the doors, windows and tires were smashed. We stopped into a massive pine that pushed the engine in a good half a meter. I was fine. Not a scratch anywhere. Got out and had massive goosebumps. The second time I was diving in a wreck at some 60-ish meters. I see my buddy frantically showing the stop hand signal and pointing up. I look up and see a thin, sharp piece of bent steel pointing right at my face. Bright light, and I'm fine. I look behind me and the steel shard is there. From where I was swimming it should have ended up square in my eye or forehead, yet I somehow passed it. Goosebumps again. My partner just said I kinda swam up and down around it, but I don't remember doing so. I've been in plenty of life-threatening situations, parachute fail, suplexed head first, nearly fell off a cliff skiing, etc., but these 2 events are the only ones where I've blanked. I almost feel like I died, reloaded and did something differently to survive. Redditor 39, so this has happened a few times in my life. But sometime, especially when I was going through adolescence, I would have these weird dreams where I didn't know anyone or recognize where I was or the context of what was happening. I would think to myself, what an odd dream, and then forget about it. As soon as let the dream leave my mind and forget about it. The dream would happen in real life. I remember a few times when the dream would happen in reality, and as soon as it did I could tell I had dreamt it before. Redditor 40, the TV is watching me. Has been for years. I first noticed it when I was watching Saturday morning TV with a friend of mine, we'll call him Graham, because that's his name, and his sister. He was being a pain in the arse to his sister, kicking her in the back and stuff. She turned round and said, "Stop being a pain, Graham." Right at that very moment, the presenter of the show looked right at the camera and said, "Yes, Graham, stop being a pain." We all heard it. For years after, now and then I'll ask someone a question while we're watching TV together, and a character on the show will immediately answer it. Sadly, I still haven't figured out a way to exploit this. Any ideas? Redditor 41, I was walking and all of a sudden, I started leaning more to my left. I had to stop and fix my balance. It never felt that before and never again. Redditor 42, when hunting a mosquito in my room, after every failed kill attempt the mosquito vanishes from existence completely until the cooldown period has expired. The fact that the cooldown period is the same as the time required for me to give up, go back to bed, and almost fall asleep is, I assume, just the devs fucking with me. Redditor 43, Once I was watching a YouTube video and the YouTuber said it's just the internet. This is not real life. Then a white flash flashed before my eyes. I then woke up 15 minutes later at the exact part of the video the white flash happened at. I was so scared, like I was being watched by aliens or something. I prayed every day for 3 years after that. Redditor 44, I think it is time for me to write about this. Never talked about this strange phenomenon to anyone. Just to clarify, I am a very skeptic person by nature, agnostic and not superstitious. This might be the only thing I can't explain rationally. Okay, so that might seem strange, but I think I have a broken system of stress. Sometimes I'm in very conventionally stressful moments, but I am as chill as an iceberg. Sometimes, during vacations, I have some sorts of mini panic attacks. If that was it, I just think I'm weird and that's it. However, I noticed a clear pattern. I only stress when bad things will happen. It never failed. If I stress for an exam, I know I'm gonna have to pass it twice, or a barely passing grade. Once I was stressed out while in a weekend with my girlfriend. No reason whatsoever, I had nothing to worry about. Next thing I know, my mother calls me and turns out my grandfather passed away. They live in another country, there is no way I could have known. I'd call it a coincidence if that just happened once or twice. But it happens literally all the time. Redditor 45, I've noticed this weird glitch where people treat Neil deGrasse Tyson as if he knew anything about anything. Redditor 46, Russia. Redditor 47, there's a thin, older white man who rides a bicycle around my neighborhood sporting a fedora, tweed jacket, and a fancy pipe. One day I saw a man dressed the same way riding a bicycle in the same area, but it was a fat black man. Just the one time, then it was the white guy again every other sighting after that. Redditor 48, one time I got on the subway and saw this homeless looking guy on the platform. I noticed that he didn't get on the subway, which was weird but okay. We arrive at the next stop, the doors open and he was standing there outside again. What the hell? Redditor 49, when I took a trip to Connecticut for a college tour, I stopped at a gas station, and when I went in to pay and grab smokes, I pulled out my ID. Employee said it wasn't necessary, I was here 2 minutes ago. Except I wasn't. I'd never been to CT before this. I was confused, so I asked him what he meant. He said, didn't you just come in, get a pack of the same smokes, and gas? Nope. Weird. Guy came in looking just like you, had the same shirt and beard and glasses and everything. Handed him my ID, and the guy apparently had the same birthday as me as well. Went out, pumped my gas, and went to the college. Super weird experience. Redditor 50, this will get lost, and I'm not certain I'm sane, but here goes. I usually walk through public in my own head, rarely really noticing anyone and feeling invisible, even though I chit-chat a lot. But several times during really challenging personal events I've had strangers stop me to intervene with support, where it feels almost like time freezes and they can see me. That's strange enough, but explainable. What's not is that they almost always check in later. The first happened when I was young, and had just realized I was pregnant. I was in no situation to have a baby, completely alone, terrified, and actively planning suicide as the solution. I went into Arby's to grab a sandwich as I did almost every day. The girl at the counter smiled and said, "Girl, you are going to make it through this," and so is he. I'd never seen her before, and never saw her there again, although it's possible I just hadn't noticed. However, a couple years later I recognized her at another fast food place, and before I could place her she asked me how my little boy was doing. I'd ended up giving him up for adoption, which no one knew, and had no other children. Another was the day my grandmother died. I was on my way to her bedside, knowing she had only hours left. It was about an hour drive and I had stopped for gas knowing I'd need it, but that I would be in no shape to stop on my way home. So I'm pumping gas, staring off into space. When a man approaches I am guarded because I am an easy target with a desirable car, but he stops short and tells me to be happy for the past, not sad about the future. It was my mantra as I sat there holding her hand, and many times since. About a year later I was shopping in my city and saw the same man. I know it was again. I rarely notice anyone and yet my attention snapped to him. He looked at me with recognition, but just then smiled and walked past. Like he was checking on his work. It's happened in similar ways 2 other times that are too private to share, and once more recently while visiting a city 1,300 miles away. He hasn't checked in yet, but I keep looking. So either my player is actively intervening, I have way too many guardian angels for a non-believer, or I just have a very odd coping mechanism in situations that are too difficult for my conscience to handle.